Hello everyone, this is Pal Ponder on Weather. In this update, we've got a strong snowstorm coming with feet of lake effect snow. Plus, we even got a stronger cold front, and we'll look at your Thanksgiving forecast as we'll walk you through all the way through the extended range. So let's take a look at the overall setup this morning. You can actually see this ridge of high pressure that's been dominating the weather pattern over the last couple of days, funneling in all that colder air into the lower 48. And then we have a reinforcing shot of colder air that will follow in the days to come. But we've had some observed snowfall over the last couple of days. Here's your overall snowfall accumulations just in the last 48 hours. We've had some snow into portions of New Mexico back into the Rockies. But what was impressive was the Texas Panhandle. And of course, Oklahoma yesterday picked up 4 to 6 inches in western Oklahoma. In fact, Elk City picked up 7.3 inches of snow. That was a lot of snow for that region this early on in the season, but that snow just shifted off into northwestern parts of Arkansas, as well as portions of Missouri, going into Iowa, as well as into Illinois. And then we also had some snow back in the Dakotas and Minnesota, going back into Wisconsin. And those snow showers are continuing to lift northeast. So we still have winter weather advisories in place for portions of Iowa, back into northern portions of Missouri, as well as central and northern Illinois. I know in and around the Chicago area had an inch or two of snow, but that snow just continues to lift northeast up along the Appalachian Mountains there, in and around Pennsylvania, going into upstate New York, but especially heading up into Vermont and New Hampshire, going into Maine, where we do have some winter storm warnings. And these areas around the lake where they've got some winter storm watches in the place, we could be looking at feet of lake effect snow taking shape with this dynamic setup that looks to unfold in the next couple of days. So this temperatures as of 10 o'clock this morning is still cold, guys. That first initial cold blast meant business. And you know, we're getting into mid-morning and these temperatures are still in the widespread 20s and 30s for a good chunk of the lower 48. The only warmer temperatures in town are well to the south, in the deep south of Texas, going back into Florida and all these extreme portions of the southeast. But there's plenty of colder air for November standards. And let's take a look at this setup going forward back into, you know, getting into later on this afternoon with that snowstorm. By then, it'll be creeping up into Pennsylvania. That's why they've got those winter weather advisories in place in portions of New York here. And to the south side, it's going to be just all rain and a good chunk of the Carolinas, back into Virginia, going into Delaware, portions of New Jersey. And as we continue going into tomorrow on Wednesday, that snowpack will continue to lift up northeast. Now it'll be elongated into northern portions of New York, back into Vermont and New Hampshire, as well as into Maine, where they could be looking at some pretty healthy totals for them. And we also have to be concerned about some ice forming to the south of there, but it's just going to be an all rain event really kind of along the coastline here. So let's take a look at some of the snowfall totals over the next couple of days from this particular setup. We've got some couple inches of snow that's still going to unfold in portions of Michigan here. Just kind of a dusting or two back into Ohio. But once you get into Pennsylvania, I think Pittsburgh misses out on the deal. But once you get into central and northern PA, we're looking at anywhere from 1 to 5 inches of snow could unfold in extreme portions of North New Jersey. Going into New York here, we could be looking at, again, 1 to 5 inches of snow back into portions of Massachusetts, back into portions of Connecticut here, and then getting into Vermont, New Hampshire. Those totals could be a little bit higher, especially as you go into Maine with some of those 6 to 8 inch totals. So if you're getting value from this video, hit the subscribe button and the like button. That tells YouTube you like my content and you value it, so they'll be able to recommend to others. But let me go over the scenario with this lake effect snow, because this is going to be a unique setup going forward. So once we get into Thursday, right, so this low pressure center will be lifting, continuing to deepen down to a 979 millibar. We've got Arctic high pressure, 1051 Arctic high pressure. That's really cold for this time of year. And we got a perfect scenario with kind of downwind of a lake effect snow event taking place off Lake Erie. So how does lake effect snow actually form? So obviously you got to have the cold air. So as cold air moves over the warm lake waters, it causes the heat and some of the moisture to rise, and as it rises, it creates cloud cover. And as we get more and more cloud cover, they grow bigger and bigger and bigger. And then once they get on land, we'll have that heavy snow bands forming and more of a downwind off the lake. Now, what's unique about this setup up there, it's been really warm, right? They've been seeing well above average temperatures before this cold blast has come through. And the Lake Erie right now is record temperatures at 55 degrees. So in a lake effect snow setup, we have to look at the temperatures about 5,000 feet. On the 850s, we look at these coming off Lake Erie near Buffalo. We're looking about 11 degrees below 0 Celsius, which is about 12 degrees Fahrenheit. So if you take the difference between the surface water of 55 degrees of Lake Erie, average is typically about 48 this time of year, and you take the temperatures at 5,000 feet, that's a 43-degree difference in temperatures. So what happens? What happens with that scenario? Well, let's take you back all the way to 2014's November, right? Some of you guys that live around the Buffalo area may recall this epic event back on November the 17th. The event started, the surface water temperature of Lake Erie at the time was about 47 degrees. So right now it's 55, guys. Like I mentioned, normal is about 48. So that was actually 1 degree below average at the time. So, but however, the air temperature at 5,000 feet at that time was about 5 degrees. This time it's 12. So in that scenario, the difference was 42 degrees, and you only need about 23-degree difference to make lake effect snow happen with that huge spread of surface water and the temps at 5,000 feet combined with the down sloping wind. Boom, what did you get back then? You got 4 feet of snow, upwards to maybe 5 feet of snow, and in even some areas, you had 6 feet of lake effect snow. And this time we have a 43-degree difference in temperature. So yeah, if you look at some of the models and look at the latest GFS model and say, hey, that's 33 inches that could unfold between Thursday and Sunday, that's almost 3 feet of snow. That's a lot of snow, right? But based on that scenario, what happened before, on the same dynamics, even 33 inches actually might be conservative in this type of scenario. We could be looking at 4, 5, upwards to 6 feet in places of like Buffalo, back into Watertown. So if you're listening to me from those areas, this is an ideal lake effect snow setup that really could unfold over the next couple of days, really from like Wednesday night to like Sunday. And the Buffalo plays at home this weekend, so that's going to be an interesting game for sure. So be on the lookout for a potential epic lake effect snow event that's going to be taking place over the next couple of days. So but back behind that, we've got another Arctic surge of much colder air. It's cold this morning, but we got a reinforcing shot. So by the time we get into Friday, boom, these are wind chill factor temperatures. All this area in green are below 0, guys. This is like the middle of November. This is some cold stuff spreading over multiple states as this another Arctic surge plunges southward. And as it does, Arctic air is the driest air. So this particular storm's not really going to have that much moisture with it because it's just going to, the further and further south it goes, and just kind of flattens out here. There's not much precipitation to pick up with this particular setup. We are going to have at least some precipitation, but overall the Arctic air is going to win out and it's going to dry all the moisture out of the atmosphere. So it could ring out some snow showers into portions of Colorado, getting into Texas Panhandle, back into portions of Oklahoma again. But other than that, there's not much precipitation to speak of. The only game in town is going to be right off the lake. And at the time, you're going to be producing some feet of snow, no question. So But yeah, there's going to be plenty of cold. So this is kind of rare to see for November 19th. And we've been cold for a while, but this is going to be even a reinforcing shot by the time we come into Saturday morning with those well below average temperatures. The only place in town is maybe Miami that won't be below average for the entire lower 48. That's definitely difficult and hard to do, especially for November. But this cold blast means business, and everybody's going to feel it in a big way. But there's just not going to be much precipitation with this particular cold front. But there's going to be a lot of cold air. So as you can definitely see by Sunday, there's nothing, right? There's hardly any precipitation to squeeze out of the atmosphere and then, you know, mix it in with any type of snow or whatever. But the only snow that's going to have is the winding down of this snow event that will take place over portions off the lake here. So you have that beginning snow event that's going to take place over the next 2 days, but then you have the lake effect that's going to follow. That's the one that's going to grab headlines, or you're talking feet of snow. There's no question. And based on those dynamics, like I showed you, 4 to 6 feet is not out of the question because it happened before, and we've got an ideal setup and a perfect type scenario of what that took place. And there's also another event back in November of 2000, you guys may remember as well, that took place with similar dynamics. So we're talking about another potential like that. So as we go forward and go through, say, next Wednesday, things start to kind of rebound. We've been cold for a while. Things do start to rebound a little bit as the winds turn around. We've got a little short wave coming back into Texas. We could be looking at ringing out some precipitation. So you're probably dry for the next 7 days in Texas. But by the time we get into, say, next Wednesday, we could be looking at some more rain showers entering back the picture. But there's also going to be the atmospheric river going to be coming back into play by then. This is the day before Thanksgiving. So we're going to bring the moisture back to the Pacific Northwest. Places that you've been missing out for the past week are going to be seeing the atmospheric river return. You're going to be seeing the snow return for Idaho and Montana as well. But we're also going to see the temperatures try to rebound by then. So by the time we get into Thanksgiving for your Thursday, kind of an early preview look, we could be looking at, you know, a slow rebound, at least average temperatures or slightly above average temperatures, as things start to modify, as some of the colder air finally starts to, say, move out and some of the warmer temperatures try to move in. But the next 7 or 8 days of precipitation kind of look like this. So it's going to be, after this system comes through with this snowstorm for the next 2 days, it's fairly dry back behind here. Most of this picks up on Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving. But overall, it's fairly dry in a good chunk of the country back behind this snowstorm. Really, the only game in time was going to be that lake effect snow event that's going to be taking place after into Thursday and Friday. But that Arctic push of colder air really dries up the atmosphere, and there's not much precipitation to follow. But what happens going in, you know, beyond Thanksgiving, kind of end November, again, we typically we modify. We've been cold for, or we will be cold for, you know, a good solid 10 to, say, 12 days in a good chunk of the country. Those temperatures are going to be rebounding a little bit. So by the time we get into Thanksgiving and beyond, so for your Friday and then going into your Thanksgiving weekend to go towards the end of November, we could be looking at least average conditions or slightly above average conditions in the midsection of the country, with just kind of average temperatures from out west as well as out into the northeast. But what's going to be a big difference of what's not happening right now is this atmospheric river is going to be coming back into play. And I don't think this really starts until probably Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving. But for those 7 days to finish November, we got plenty of rain on the table back into the Pacific Northwest, going back into Northern California. We'll start having these kind of northwest flow events start to creep back in the picture. And plus, we'll have more precipitation to work with, some of the warmer temperatures pulling up some of the Gulf moisture as well by then. So, hey, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video. Definitely leave your comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel to catch the latest update where I protect you before and after the storm.